But yeah, thanks for meeting us late after work.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I've gathered some information about the IDT system, but I tried to stop myself because I don't want to know too much to spoil my own typing. I think there's always confirmation bias with, most people. So I don't want to fall into that trap here.
True. Dan, are you moving things around?
I am. I'm sorry I messed it up, didn't I? Okay, I'll fix it.
Oh. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's better. All right. Go ahead.
What do you do for work?
I work for a real estate company in Orange County, California. I manage a large new apartment community, and my specific role is logistics in terms of audit compliance, making sure that tasks are done properly, making sure that resources aren't wasted, and everything points to our residents having a good experience, starting with applying their residency and as they transition to home ownership or another apartment complex. And that comes by way of their final account statements, and I take care of those as well. So it's important that we have our I's dotted and our T's crossed, and when something goes wrong, I fix it. And a good day is a day with no mistakes, and things running smoothly. And I like solving problems, and I like being an important part of the community that I serve, and I love work.
Nice. Does it matter what you're doing, or is it like you just, like, whatever the community is, you enjoy being of use?
I think for me, I like to be in a place where I can contribute, and I can contribute better in some places than in others. If I started out as an apartment leasing agent, and instead of moving up to bigger sales or hosting residents or hosting resident events, I went in the direction of taking care of really just following policies and procedures and making sure that my team members are doing that as well. And coming around to your question, if I was stuck in one of those other positions, like I can't imagine myself being a great host for a resident event, for example, and getting everyone on board with karaoke or something like that. Like I imagine that would, someone else could do a better job of contributing than I could. But I mean, I'll go to the event and take out the trash and help set the tables and take care of, the things that need to be done, and leave the entertaining to others.
Gotcha. Do you enjoy going to the events? Or is it just kind of like, it's a work function, so you're like, I kind of have to show face, I'm just kind of here?
Honestly, we have a work party tomorrow night, and I'm nervous about it because, it throws me off my routine. I'm really attached to doing things the way I have arranged in my life. I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, work out 7 days a week, go to work, come home, take an hour or two with my son, who's 12, maybe watch a football game in the background, like that's happening right now. But you can pretty much, I'll be in bed early. Now, when a team event, even something, even a good surprise like a Christmas party, I have to get myself to be excited about, because what I'm thinking is, okay, this is going to mess up my bedtime. I won't get to see my son. Will I be tired the next morning? Will that affect my work performance? Am I going to get sloppy and make a mistake? And everyone else is like, have a drink, come on. And, I'm thinking about, the next day, my list of things to do, that kind of stuff. So yeah, to be honest and maybe a little vulnerable, I'm not that excited about that. I mean, it's not like I'm a robot or something, like I love good one-on-one interaction, in the right environment. I can go on and talk your ear off, but it's more limited to one-on-one situation. I'm not interested in, going out and singing karaoke and trying some weird new dish that I don't know what it is or what it's going to taste like, or meeting a bunch of people who I don't know and exchanging greetings and hugs and stuff like that. That's not my thing.
Gotcha. And when you're at work, you said that like you don't have a problem like enforcing the rules, I guess. I might have misheard you or something, but how would you you said like you make sure that the other people in the company are also following the procedures. Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone when they're growing up, we've all had issues with the rules. I mean, there's been times I'll run through a stop sign if it's 5:30 in the morning and there's not a soul in sight. Every now and then I'll just go through it. Nobody likes to be overly constrained with the rules, so I'm not really what I would call an enforcer. What I do is I clarify what the expectations are. I model how to do it the right way, and then I show the team the results that sort of speak for themselves. I don't tell them like, oh, you should do this or you did this wrong. That's like a higher manager's job. What I do is say, there is an error here. This is what went wrong. And then I'll wait and see what feedback, some people are more defensive than others. And then I will explain this is the procedure that probably led to the error. For some people, it's going too fast. For other people, they never really were trained the right way. For other people, it's maybe a cognitive error or mistake, like a math mistake. And, sometimes we don't know what went wrong, but we make sure we find everything wrong and get it fixed so that when the bigger company audits come, they find our building in perfect compliance.
Gotcha. Okay. And I guess how would you say your coworkers view you?
I don't really know how they see me. I mean, I know that if you were to ask them to describe me, they would say I'm very punctual. I live 36 miles from work and I've never been late in 2 years. I'm pretty proud of that. They would say that I love my work because I don't take many days off. It's really rare. They would say that I'm even tempered. I don't lose control even when situations are hostile and someone comes in really upset. I'm good at staying firm, but in a nice way. Like the rules are the rules. Like I would compare it. I like analogies. I would compare it to a scale. A scale isn't yelling at you. A scale isn't forcing anything on anyone. It's just saying, here's what the numbers are. I know you think that pizza you had last night didn't affect you, but here's what you weigh this morning. It's up to you to figure out what you want to do about that. And that's kind of almost how I do things. Like I show people, this is how we're supposed to do it. If something went wrong, let me know. We'll try to troubleshoot and figure out what happened. And I think most of my coworkers appreciate that. They would definitely see me as a social introvert, but they know that one-on-one I can be vulnerable and personal. They make fun of me for being OCD and overly structured. Like my pocket square has to match my shirt exactly. My desk, if anything is out of line at all, I don't know if that's like a bit of Asperger syndrome or something. I took a test the other day and like I scored really high on that. I'm like, oh wow. I knew there was a little bit of something going on there, but the score is a lot higher than I expected. But so I think that's how my workers probably see me as a little bit not quite eccentric. I'm pretty normal with normal interests and everything, but maybe a little regimented, like I'm not drinking, I'm working out every day. Even during a party, I'll refrain from overeating because I want to stay fit and healthy. The older you get, the more you have to watch those kinds of things. So
very true.
David Goggins is one of my role models. I really, some people don't like him. I love the guy. So, yeah.
What you love about him?
I love the resilience. He doesn't say, oh, here I go again. Look at me go. He says, I don't want to do this. This sucks. You got to embrace the suck. You got to all of us feel that wanting to put it off, the procrastination, you wake up and say, is today the day I'm gonna take a break? And it's like, nope, not today. Maybe tomorrow I'll take a day off, but no, not today. And he has all the colorful words he calls himself and others that don't want to get up and do what they know they're supposed to do. But I like the part that he doesn't shy away from his, he's not saying that he never feels like eating a bag of Cheetos and just sitting on the couch and doing nothing. He admits that those thoughts get to him. But the difference between him and everyone else is that he does the right thing anyway. He feels the urge to be lazy and he fights it. And that's what I admire in him.
Awesome.
Can you run us through your 7-day-a-week workout program?
Yeah. So it's a routine I've followed for the last 5 years. In the last 4 years, I have not missed a single day. And so what I do is I know to be healthy. I mean, there's sleep and diet involved. I do intermittent fasting. I try to do a 24 cycle, 20 hours off, 4 hours on. It ends up being 18 and 6, sometimes 16 and 8. And when that happens, it breaks into 2 different meals, like a breakfast and then a late lunch. But I usually skip dinner, and then I always get 8 hours of sleep. That's one thing. I'm jealous of people. Like I remember in basketball, like Dennis Rodman, I met him in Newport Beach once, and the guy doesn't sleep. He always said he didn't need to sleep, and it's true. And it's not just because of partying either. It's like some people don't really need sleep as much as others. I always get 8 hours. Like that's standard for me. And if I dip under that, I can tell the difference. So those are like foundations that, and then my workouts, they're not overly difficult. That way I never get injured. I never push myself too hard and can't go the next day. So, and I do enjoy a little bit of variety within my routine. So I work out 7 days a week. I don't have any days off. It goes Monday. What I do is called a military march. I put on a 40-pound vest. I put on 10-pound ankle weights, and I carry 20-pound dumbbells, and I walk a mile. There's like 3 blocks around my house, and part of it is a hill. It takes about a half hour with all my gear on, and that's just like general weight stuff. Then on Tuesdays, I simply do a run. There have been times when it rains and I'll do a bike ride, like the bicycle workout machine inside my house. But I run 3 miles, and then I'll bike 5 if I have to bike, but normally it's just a run. Okay. And then that takes a while too in the mornings. Then on Wednesdays, I do a weight workout from home, and that is squats I do 120 squats with 20-pound dumbbells, 120 push-ups. I do 120 sit-ups. I do 120 calf raises, and I do 120 curls. So that just gets all my weight exercises done. Now, on the following day, I do a speed workout. So that involves jump rope. Not a ton of jump rope. I do 240 repetitions jump rope. Then I do 120 jumping jacks in a row. It's funny, jumping jacks are easy, but you'd be surprised how many people have a tough time keeping up with those. But and then I do 12 sprints. So like I'll sprint 50 yards up and down the hill right in front of my house, and then that keeps my speed up. And then I do 120 punches, just like I have a punching bag. So that's my speed workout. It's really hard, intense, but it's quick. It doesn't take as long as the other ones. Then on Fridays, I do a calisthenics workout with pull-ups and leg raises, and again, push-ups, and then lunges instead of squats for my legs. I usually do those, this will sound weird, but I do those without shoes. So like my calves, everything, like it's partly balanced. When you're doing lunges, barefoot, like your ankles, your toes, you see guys like who are in good shape otherwise, and you see them with like crusty feet and stuff, like that's because they're not getting blood flow everywhere. I like my fingers, my toes, everything to feel it. And then Saturdays, I do a boxing workout, which is just hitting a heavy bag, hitting a light bag. And, it's really good. You watch people who are, again, otherwise good athletes, you watch them with the bouncy speed bag, and it's just like they can't even do it, and it makes you realize how easy it is to lose that coordination. And so I do that workout once a week on Saturdays. And then on Sundays, I do a swimming workout, breaststroke moves, dog paddle moves. And I'm lucky enough to live in a house with a pool. And that's the 7-day-a-week workout.
what inspired you to make? Did you make the program for yourself, or did you get it from somewhere else?
Um, it was an evolution of my self routine. It was inspired by, again, David Goggins had something to do with it. Jocko Willink, seeing him like with the Instagram post of his watch at 4:30 in the morning. And even though I'm a creature of habit and a creature of routine, I know you can't just do the same thing every single day. So I wanted to get some variety. And the way I got my variety, I realized I have to be strong. I have to have endurance. I have to have stamina, which isn't exactly the same as endurance. There's some overlap, but one is more like a long, slow burn. The other's like gassing you out. I think I overheard you in a video say that you do martial arts. So, like someone who thinks they can fight, who hasn't been in a real fight, after 60 seconds, they're done, So you need to have that stamina, where they do all their best swings and you're like, hey, dude, I'm still here. What's up now? And they're have their hands on their knees, leaning over, going, okay, So I want to stay. I mean, in a way, it's a futile fight, but I want to stay healthy, young, even as I age. I love the fact that I'm doing flips off my diving board and stuff. And I want to keep doing that. If you don't use it, you really do lose it. And so I wanted to have a stable routine, something rigorous enough to keep me in tip-top shape, something easy enough to not injure myself, and something that is a routine yet varied, so I don't get sick of doing the same thing every single day. So I do the same thing once a week and something else on each other of the days of the week.
And what's your age?
I was born in 1977, so that makes me 48.
Oh, 48. Okay. Well, you're in good shape. 48.
Yeah.
Good routine.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I have my abs, high school weight. Thank you.
So, have you actually made a goals for yourself other than like just in general, just being more healthy, building your stamina and strength, and that's the reason why you work out 7 days a week? Did you make a specific goal for yourself that you achieved, or not really?
Yes. Unlike, it's not in fashion to have New Year's resolutions. People say that if you have a resolution, you should always have it. And my resolutions are ongoing. I just adjust them a little bit every year. I have financial goals. I have health goals. I have diet and weight goals. The health and fitness is a little bit different than diet and weight. I have religious goals. I go to church every Sunday, haven't missed any days. And again, just like the workouts, that same discipline. There's days I want to stay in bed, but I don't. God's given me the gift of a healthy life. And, my gift back is to do the best I can with what I have. And if I can't take an hour once a week to express my gratitude, then I don't deserve those gifts, I don't think. And so that's prayer, and church is a big part of who I am and what I do. I have work goals because, work's at the forefront of my life. I have family and friend goals too. It's embarrassing that I have to set those kinds of goals for myself, but if I don't press myself to stay in contact with people, one of the best jokes I've ever heard about, in Christianity is, one of Jesus's greatest miracles is that he had 12 good friends in his 30s. It's like, our friends just go away, right? And you meet up with people every now and then. And it's like, oh yeah, we got to do something. Yeah, for sure. And then 6 months later, you meet up and you say the same thing, and doing actually something together never ends up happening. And so yeah, I want to want that more. It's superficial. It's people say, like at work, they've told me you have to fake it till you make it in these social things, and I still have difficulty with that sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's BS. You don't have to fake it till you make it for friends. Because if you're faking friendship, then it's not going to be friendship. And they're going to be like BS. It's like a fair weather friend, not a real friend.
Yeah, it's true, and I wish I was just in better touch with my family, but the opportunity's there every day, and I just don't have the same drive to reach out and make social connections that I do with regards to my religion or my workout program or my dedication to my job. Those things take precedence over my family and social life, I think. All I know.
Yeah. So were you raised Christian, or did you find your faith later in life or something?
That's an interesting question, because I was raised with the beliefs, but the actions didn't follow at all. And so, I accept anyone seeking God from any religion. I'm not one of those exclusivists who say you have to be a part of a particular church or anything. Now, that being said, it might surprise you what I'm going to say next, but I was the kind of person who preached one thing and did another. And then I read the book of James closely about faith without works being dead. And I realized that my way wasn't really working. I studied philosophy and religion in college, and my life wasn't any different than my atheist colleagues and friends. So, what I did 3 years ago was I joined the Catholic Church, and I was a big critic of Catholicism for a long time. But the structure and the routines, things, I was always structured in my own way, but I never thought that I would embrace the church life as much as I have. Now, people do it for different reasons. A lot of people are social in the church. I'm not really. I show up. I take part in the mass with all my mind, soul, and body, and then I leave. I don't socialize after or hang out or do any of the extracurricular activities. But what led me to that branch of Christianity was something called apostolic succession. No matter how messed up the church is, to me, it's still the church. Even as I accept people who are from a different church. But yeah, my belief has always been there internally, but only more recently am I really trying to embody those principles in my life. Being nice when you want to be mean, giving someone money who is in need instead of turning the other way like I didn't see them, those kinds of things. And I think, if there is a God, like I believe there is, I think God sees that whether you're Christian, Muslim, even if you're agnostic, or something else. I think you're doing work on the right side.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Interesting. I noticed you highlighting being consistent for 2 years. What's the significance in 2 years, you would say? Or is it at all?
Well, I haven't had a drink in 7 years. So, and that was, again, just, I didn't have an accident, didn't have an addiction or anything like that. I just decided I didn't want that to be a part of my life anymore. So I gave up drinking. My workouts have been consistent for, I'd say 4 years, almost 5 years, but I know I don't, trying to remember why I missed a day, but I think in 2019 I missed a day. It was raining or something, and I just started my program, and I was going to do something later, and then I woke up the next morning. I was like, oh no, I forgot. So I did 2 workouts that next day, but that still doesn't take the place of missing one. So there's nothing magical about the 2-year mark. Different positive habits have had different elements to them. Now, to take it full circle, what we started on earlier, I set new goals for each, like my New Year's resolutions have like 6 aspects to them that I already listed. And I just try to raise the bar a little bit on each one. Some things I leave alone because if a wheel isn't broken, I don't like trying to tamper with it, But yeah, on consistency, it's so important. It's the most underrated positive quality there is. If you're going at 80% or even 70% all the time, every day, you're going to beat out people who eclipse you at certain points, but then run out of steam at others. It's like the tortoise racing the hare fable.
Mm-hmm.
I gotcha. Nice.
Do you consider yourself the tortoise or the hare in this story?
I like how the hare looks better, maybe, but I would be the tortoise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Slow and steady. What do you do when you have free time and you've gotten all the things that you usually do out of the way?
I mean, it depends on what time of day it is and what kind of day it is. I had a little bit of free time at the end of work today, so I turned the Rams Seahawks game on my phone and watched a little bit of that. I spend a lot of time reading. I actually got this new book. I have a ton of books on typology. This one is called Traits and Types. I haven't really gotten into it yet, but that's interesting. I don't want to ruin the typing, but I got this other book. I won't show you the cover, but someone suggested it, and I thought it'd be a good fit. I read typology. I like to read Enneagram. Once in a while, I went to school for philosophy and religion, so I have enough philosophy and theology for a lifetime, but I do continue to take classes at the University of Notre Dame on various subjects. Like there's a class that starts in February on the Book of Revelation that I think I'll go ahead and take, because it's something that, even though I've read it, and there's so much symbolism and moving parts in that work, I'd like to expound further into it, just see what is going on there that I might have missed in my years of studying. I like certain TV shows. I love Mad Men, that show. I have the whole series of that. I like James Bond movies. I like his historical pieces. I like I never thought, even though I'm religious, I never thought I would enjoy religious shows, but the show The Chosen is really good.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that's good.
And so I've been binge watching that. There's another one called The House of David that I've really been enjoying.
I've been watching that one too.
Really? Isn't it great? I love it,
very good. I didn't watch it all yet, but I got to the part where like he's just about to take down Goliath.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I love the reaction. They're trying to get him not to fight and stuff, and the whole love interest going on. I love how it's historically accurate, but gives us a little bit more color than just the scripture alone provides us with. And so yeah, those are the things I do on my free time. Or I do have a 12-year-old. We've been doing workouts at the YMCA. And that's been fun to watch him progress after school, and test my own weightlifting abilities, outside the privacy of my home, and that's kind of nice.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Do you do anything with your son besides working out, like I don't know, like go out to parks, or, I mean, he's 12. I don't know what else, like what 12-year-old boys do.
We swim and play sports. Like during the World Series, we have wiffle balls and bats, and I go in the backyard and strike them out, and he gets angry. And, we play pool while, what we do for fun? We watch WWE a lot. And so the wrestling stuff, it's kind of like a mindless, guilty pleasure just to watch. I like the arguing as much as the actual fighting. It's just fun watching them size each other up. And we watch that. And there's a wrestler who just retired, John Cena, and he comes in just smiling. Everyone's hating him, and he's just relishing in it. And he did the John Cena "you can't see me" thing on everyone. They're just like hating him, booing him, and we're just laughing at it, and that kind of stuff's fun. So yeah, we do that. And then on my days off, I give them a ride to school. Right now I have strange days off, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That'll switch with a recent promotion, but it hasn't switched yet. So it's odd having to work Saturdays and Sundays, but again, I still find a way. I get to church before work on Sunday, and I stay in touch with the family on Saturday and stuff. So I've found a way to make it work.
That's awesome. And congratulations on your promotion. That's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself ambitious, or is it just kind of like you do it for just being sorry, I'm going blank on the words, like supporting your family? Like, is it like an ambitious kind of thing, or is it just like you just want to support your family?
I don't think in either of those terms really. Like my son's mother makes more money than me, so I'm not really I'm not the main one supporting him.
Oh, okay.
It's as far as ambition goes. Well, there's different kinds of ambition. What I want, I love being. I mean, different words mean different things to different people. And for me, I love being in a comfort zone. That doesn't mean laying on the couch doing nothing, but I love having an attractive, clean, modern office place where everything is attractive and nice. And I have that right now. And the reason I didn't get a promotion sooner is it would have involved me moving to a different property where it's not quite as new, and the office spaces are a little bit older. And like for a few bucks more, I'm going to be how many degrees less happy in my everyday space. I think people underrate their environment and overrate money. It's like, would you rather work 8 hours a day in the office space of your dreams, or make, $247 more per month and be in a busy office with old equipment and crinkled up phone cords with makeup smears on the phone handle. You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted to wait until I had things the way I really wanted them. And so as far as ambition goes, I'm really ambitious in that sense, but it's cost me in terms of like, I'm not one of those people just following the promotion or money. Like, yeah, I'm just going to step up wherever the money is. That's where I'll go, if I was a football player, or let's say I was a basketball player, I'd rather be the sixth man on a championship team than be the star of the like mid-range or crappy team, in a dilapidated, obsolete arena with ugly uniforms. Like, no.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I like tradition and modernity at the same time in that sense.
Okay.
Have you played sports growing up?
I'm sorry?
Have you played sports, any sports growing up?
Yeah, I was a national surfing champion as an amateur. And then I liked football and basketball and baseball, but surfing was what I was good at. But I never made it as a professional surfer, because when I turned pro, it was interesting. I would compare it to winning the Heisman Trophy and then flopping as a pro. Like Matt Leinart and Vince Young, the USC and Texas quarterbacks. Yeah. They were the best there was, and neither one did well in his pro career. Guys who they blew away in college had more successful pro careers. That was me. And I think part of it was travel. Like, part of surfing is living out of hotels in a suitcase, and I always wanted to be at home. I didn't like traveling. All my best results were at home. And I was never comfortable on the road, and I think that affected my surfing career a lot more than I wanted to admit at the time. But yeah, that's not really a success story for me. But and then I wasn't into the surfing lifestyle. Like, my brother still does compete, but it's like he loved surfing for the sake of surfing, and I appreciated being part of nature and doing something healthy, but I was never like surfer bro, one of those types. So, and now I don't really do it because, this isn't going to be flattering, but I don't like the idea of getting sand in my car and changing out of a wetsuit on the pavement and getting, I'm more aware of sharks in the water now. I always was, but I'm more scared of them now than I was before. And now I look back on all the times I had a weird feeling that something's out there in the water with me, and it's like in my subconscious, I just know there is a great white sitting there scoping me out, But so yeah, that's my past. I appreciate it, but I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing now instead of just living off the past.
But what are two things that you've noticed that has been big changes that you've made or just noticed between you now and you maybe 20 years ago, you would say?
What's interesting, I'd say, underneath the surface, I'm still me. The things that have stayed the same is that I've always been punctual. Like, I'm always on time, whether it's a date or whether it's to work or, even a social event. I'm not one to be late. I'm always organized. Like, ever since I was a kid, I have a clean room. I'll show you guys like my closet. Can you see that?
Yeah.
These are
Very
Christmas
organized.
presents I haven't wrapped yet, but I have my shirts lined up, my little stuff, my dirty
Color
clothes,
coded from
my
light to dark.
shoes. So you asked me what's different, and here I am telling you what's the same. So what's different is, I was drinking a lot and doing even, like I partook in some recreational drug use that I'm not proud of. Not because it was a crisis or anything. It was just because it was there and it was fun. But, even then I did those things in the privacy of my home. I wasn't going out and about. But then I just realized doing this stuff, drinking or, cocaine, that was the drug that I liked. Never smoked, never did any other drug, just those two. That's enough, right? I realized it's like having the best surfboard and living in Utah. It's like, what are you doing it for? It's like, I wanted to work out. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to have a good career, and just that other lifestyle didn't fit. And so I would say that's the biggest thing. In college, I would be drinking while I had my computer out writing my term paper for a philosophy class. Now I eat and drink pure. I'm way more healthy that way now. So that would be the one difference. But what's interesting to me is the rest of my personality didn't change that much. It was still, again, even at the height of my partying, for lack of a better word, I was still punctual. I still advanced in college and graduate school, and I was still responsible in those ways.
How do you deal with conflict?
I don't like conflict. I would say, in summary, I take a middle of the road. I don't give in and shy away from it, but I don't invite it and relish in it either. To speak in Enneagram terms, I would be compliant, not assertive nor withdrawn. I would be, let's see if we can work this out. And sometimes that's like putting gasoline on the fire, unfortunately. But other times when it does work, it's a beautiful thing. And so conflict, I find that usually if you stick to the facts, the conflict more often than not will solve itself. I think a lot of times conflict happens when people feel like they're being disrespected. So again, the facts, you can clarify that you didn't mean disrespect, or they think that they've been treated unfairly. And you can explain, like in my job, these are fair housing laws. We treat everyone the same. We have to treat everyone the same. What's happening to you and your rent raise is happening to me, myself, and others as well. So I think when you can explain the facts of the situation, and sometimes the facts of the situation are, yeah, this is a bad deal. This was a bad call. I'm sorry. I wish we could do something better. Now, if it's a conflict where I'm personally involved in, again, I'll always appeal to the facts. It's not about my truth or your truth. It's about the truth. So let's look at the facts. Let's see what, aside from our feelings, what is really happening here. And when you have two willing people to focus on that, I think that leads to a resolution more often than not.
Do you have any real life examples of you dealing with conflict that you think you can share?
Yeah, let's see. I would say yes. At work, part of my job is managing leases. When someone rents an apartment from us and their lease is up, they have a choice to either give notice and move out or go month to month without a contract or renew for another 12 or 13 months or sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Now, what's happening in California and in our building in particular are, new laws are coming into effect to keep prices down. So while companies like the one I work for are, they're business first, right? And so they want to make money. They're jacking the prices up, and people don't like it. And so I had someone storm in my office telling me, pointing their finger right in my face, you're raising my rent $420. This is ridiculous. I'm going to sue. I'm going to take you to court. And my neighbor's rent only went up 200. What's the deal with this? You're ripping me off. This is unfair. And so what I did is I said, I understand. My rent went up and I didn't like it either. I understand where you're coming from. Let's sit down and I'll explain what's going on. So I showed the person the market rates. I showed them some market rates from Los Angeles and San Diego as well as Orange County, just to show that this is a widespread thing, not limited to our apartment community. And then I zeroed in on the actual apartment itself and the one next door that the person was complaining about. And I showed, like, your apartment has more square footage. Your rent is lower than theirs from the baseline. So that's why you got a higher increase, because they were already paying a higher rate. And I explained that other market factors come into play, like the apartment view, the distance to amenities, how long other apartments have been on market, how much we have or don't have of a particular floor plan. If your apartment's the only 2-bedroom we have, your rate's going to be higher than if we have 12 of your apartment floor plan. We don't want to have 13 of them. But if we only have one, we know we're going to rent it out. So the person still left the office unhappy, but I was able to use what we call a renewal save offer. And I was able to get them a slightly lower rate. Like, I think they still went up around 300 and change, but I cut their rate down. They were more happy, especially with my references to other identical apartments, not just at our community, but at neighboring communities. And they ended up giving me a nice social media review for taking the time to explain what was happening behind the scenes and putting everything into the proper context and perspective.
By the way, real quick, sorry, real quick, I want to let you know, like, we do have Alki here. She's another typist. She popped in a little bit ago. I just wanted to make that clear that she's not just a random person.
Yeah, she's another typist.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear, just so you're not like, who the heck is this random person jumping into this? So
that's all right.
Yeah. All right, cool. Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
That's okay. Can you explain one of the most embarrassing moments in your life and how you felt while going through it? Something that you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, let me think about that. I think, I'm trying to think of something recent. But
okay, take your time.
while I'm thinking in the background, I'll say I try to manage my life such that I won't have embarrassing situations like that. But
How do you go about doing that?
Just by being present and stable in the moment and recognizing situations in the context of past events, so that you can understand what has happened before could be happening again right now if you don't make a U-turn or do something different. I think I want to think of a particular moment that I've been really embarrassed. I would say it wasn't a singular event, but I was working in Hollywood, and when I this was when I first joined the Catholic Church, after just being a non-denominational Christian. And my coworkers, the church I was at is very liberal in terms of politics. They had an LGBTQ sector in the church, and they had a lot of LGBTQ events, stuff like that. But my work colleagues didn't know that. And I ended up leaving this job because of the social aggression that I felt there. They thought that when I joined the church, that they're like, oh, so you're one of those Trump guys and all that. And I'm like, you have it all wrong. They're like, yeah, sure, you're just saying that. And then I remember later I was justified, and they were like, oh, wow, I didn't know, but I didn't really get the full on apology that I, thought I would get. But it was real embarrassing to find out that all the weird looks and murmurs that I was hearing, it was because of that. They didn't know that my religious conversion didn't have anything to do with taking a right-wing turn in my political views. I still, it's the same guy who voted for Clinton and Obama, none of my opinions changed on that count. I accepted, all my colleagues without reference to, gender, sexuality, race, or any of those things. But when they had only heard that I was now going to church, since none of them are religious, they just thought, they equated that with all those other pejorative things that some people unfortunately link with that, and sometimes with good reason. But that was embarrassing, and that was embarrassing enough where I just didn't feel comfortable working in Hollywood anymore. And so I decided to make a change. So yeah, that was embarrassing. Usually my embarrassing moments come when there's some sort of misunderstanding about where I stand socially with something, or, I'm being quiet and they think I'm being stuck up. I'm being shy and they think it's just weird. I go to church, so they think that equals a red hat on my head, those kinds of things.
How do you relate with time?
Time is a little bit of a mystery to me. I mean, and I know enough about typology to know, the regular MBTI version of NI isn't really about time. It's more about thematic elements and symbolism. But the Socionics interpretation of introverted intuition is all about time. And so, I've always thought, where I would place that in my stack depends a lot on the system. I definitely wouldn't give myself polar NI in any personal framework in an MBTI sense, but I know it's not very high in the Socionics interpretation of it. And why is that? I would say because I don't measure time in increments as easily as I think some others do. Now, I know the difference between the past, the present, and the future, but the difference between something that happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it all falls under the past, not, well, this is, different than that. I mean, of course I can divide my life into different stages based on what I was doing at the time. But time is mysterious, and I think about time from the way we experience it versus new interpretations in theoretical physics, versus, a perceived God's eye view of time. And it's interesting that instead of time being a river, like how we experience it, time might be like not only just like a movie where from a God perspective you can forward time and rewind it, but like from a physics point of view, it can maybe be like a painting, where this event happened in this one corner of the canvas and this other event happened in another, but in some MCU multi-universe, it's all already happened and it's all right there. And there's a saying in the Bible when they ask Jesus, when's the kingdom coming? And Jesus says it's within you, it's among you. And you can take that in a lot of different ways, but I've thought about that recently in terms of time. And I thought, how strange would it be if every moment is part of forever and forever can be in every moment? And this whole thing is, for lack of a better expression, like some sort of simulation where it's the past, present, and future are all equally present if you were in the right place outside of time. So yeah, that's my thoughts on time.
Okay. To someone who doesn't believe in God, how would you explain the concept of God to them?
I would start by saying that, there's different arguments for, proofs of God, and they've been attacked by various atheists. A place where I could meet them again, like, how do you handle conflict? This is an example of me being compliant. I would say, what can we agree on is there is a world with a bunch of variety, some disorder, but a lot of order as well. And if I was to explain my faith in the most simplest terms possible, I would say we don't absolutely know with certainty whether there's a God or not. But I would say when you think of things like the sublime beauty, the intricacy of the human eye, the strong emotions of love and pleasure and pain and our hopes and dreams and fears, I think that it's more likely to me that there is a source from which these elements come from. I think it's more likely that that's the case than that it's all a random accident, that somehow over eons of time, an inanimate particle of dust somehow developed into what we see around the world today with all its beauty and variety. So I would call God the equivalent of this source. And I would say, you know, we can know that something is without knowing what it is. And I think most people's rejection of God comes from, on the one hand, rebellion, because, you know, who wants to be loyal and truthful and all of those things just for the sake of it, you know, when there's temptations everywhere, right? On the other hand, to be fair to the natural skeptics and unbelievers, I would say that the other rejection comes from what we attach to it. You know, I've met a lot of agnostics, for instance, who it's not really the idea of God as I have described it here that they're rejecting. What they're rejecting is a super policeman in the sky telling them that they're going to hell if they're gay, or they're going to hell if they're a Muslim, or something like that. You know, that's what they're rejecting when they say they don't believe in God. They're not saying that I think there's nothing, and what we see with our little 5 puny senses is all there is, and there can be nothing more. There's no other colors in the spectrum except what we can see. There's no sounds except what we can hear. We're all there is. I don't think there's very many people that really believe that. I think the people who make a stance against God, there's almost always something extra in that. But, you know, that's I'm stepping outside the lane of your questioning there by offering my opinion on that. I would say the way I would express God to someone who didn't believe is just that a source of the universe. You might even call it the equivalent of the universe itself. You know, I've heard it said, you know, maybe the universe is God's body. And I think there's beauty in that thought.
So what is truth to you?
Truth is the agreement of a claim and reality. So truth is the coherence of a claim and the actual thing that the claim is made about. So when the connection is there, we have truth. When it is not there, we don't have truth. When we can't verify or falsify it, then we have to leave it up in the air, at least from a theoretical perspective. And so, you know, there's different kinds of truth. How does that play out? You know, you're in a relationship, things aren't going too well. You say, I love you. No, you don't. I do. We'll prove it. You know, how can you really prove it? You know, I did A, B, and C. Well, you would do that for anyone, you know? So some sorts of truth per se are harder to distinguish than others. 2 + 2 = 4 is a kind of truth we can prove. Now, the interesting thing about truth is the truths that are most provable are also the most boring. And the truths that are the most interesting are the ones most open to debate, right? So truth can be a slippery thing. But one thing I will say about truth, which I'm proud of, and I don't know if this will, I don't know how this will play out in the typing, but one thing I pride myself on is the truth, in terms of, if someone who I dislike says something that is true, I have no problem saying that. And it seems like nowadays, take politics, for example, and I'm talking about people from both sides. Truth depends on who it's coming from. I've seen so many instances where you can take quotes and someone will say that's awful, and then it's a quote from someone they weren't expecting, and now suddenly, well, yeah, actually I see what they meant, it's not that bad. I try my best not to be that way. Truth shouldn't have anything to do with who is claiming it or proclaiming it, rather. And I find that, even in instances such as sports betting, I grew up liking the Raiders. I'm smart enough to never bet on them winning a football game this year. Other people, they can't make a distinction between what they hope and what they think. And I'm proud that I am able to make those distinctions. I can say, yes, I don't like that person, or I don't like that team, but I think they are going to win. I think what they said was right, and so that's my little footnote on truth.
So is it fair to say that your truth is validated externally more than internally?
Some things, again, depending on the kind of truth, some things, I believe I didn't overeat yesterday, but the scale says I gained 1.3 pounds. So my feeling of truth was falsified by the fact that the scale showed me. So in that sense, it's external. Something like believing that God can save everyone, but that I'm getting the most of my faith in the particular religious practice that I'm adhering to. That's something that I'm not going to perhaps ever know. So in that kind of truth is more inside, so in terms of typology, I'm thinking, 3/4 TE, 1/4 reserving for FI. I don't know, maybe that's a good assessment or a bad assessment, but that's what I would say.
I noticed, I watched a couple of your videos of your channel, and I think it's okay to bring this up, but I noticed you mentioned being type SE lead or base in Socionics. Disagreed with it, or?
Yes, and I watched your video with Jack, and I admire, most people they're afraid to go head to head with him because he is a brilliant orator, and he makes good arguments. But so most people, even when they disagree with him, don't want to publicly go into a debate with him. And I thought, like your critiques of his system, as insofar as I understood what you were saying, I agreed with. What happened with me and Jack was he typed me back in 2019, right when I first, had like a lifestyle change, like I was just getting sober. I was really finding out more about who I really am, other lifestyle changes, professional changes. I'm the kind of guy who'd stay at the same job my whole life if I could. And I think he early on just put me in a certain box. And then from that point forward, no matter what evidence comes into play, he interprets it in that lens, and that's frustrating. And I tried, because of his intelligence, to just go ahead and agree with them and just say, okay, in your system, I'm an SE lead. And it's like stretching myself with a rubber band, and I was holding on, and sooner or later it's just going to snap back, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I tried, but all the things I'm supposed to be, my performance reviews at work weren't lining up with it. The people who I live with and who've known me for decades, they're not seeing it. And at some point, even if his system's among the best, and even if he typed me correctly in his system, which I have my doubts, it's so esoteric and off that it has no meaning to anyone I meet at work or in social gatherings or anything else. To say I'm an SEE, but I'm an SEE who goes to church every Sunday. I'm an SEE who's punctual. I'm an SEE who's routine based. I'm a socially introverted SEE. How many disclaimers are we going to make before you just say, you know what, if it doesn't look like a rose and it doesn't smell like a rose, it's not a rose, right? And any type that requires a ton of disclaimers for a person, I can't believe in that type long term. And so that's where I'm at right now with what happened with him. And from what your comment was, I think you, at least in large part, agree with me.
What would you type yourself in Socionics?
See, that's a hard one. And I think a big part of it comes from the introversion, extroversion problem. When we talk of what those terms mean, it's funny how a third grader knows what that means, but experts in typology are at odds over it. Isn't that an irony? Are you energized by people or being by yourself? Do you like large parties, or would you rather be alone? Do you leave places early? Do you have issues socially? All those kinds of things. In MBTI terms, I would type myself as an introvert. I think I am one. In Socionics, it's more difficult. I still think that it's I still think there's a social element that should take precedence in it, but it's hard. In Socionics, I have a hard time landing on a type. In MBTI, it's a lot easier for me, but in Socionics, it would be some sort of I know some people have said LSE, like ESTJ, but I don't have that commanding. I know that it's just an old stereotype, but I'm not bossy that way. I'm not interested in control or being like a leader as for its own sake or anything like that. I would almost type myself, you see, and this is a problem again, maybe an ISTP in Socionics, but then the stereotypes for them are exactly opposite of me. I'm a workaholic. They're usually lazy. I consider myself, more of a rational type than in terms of those dichotomies, at least. But I would probably still, if it was up to me and no one else, and I just want to retreat from the world and do my own little thing, I'd probably say SI lead ISTP in Socionics, which I know doesn't fit the description the right way, but I do think those same parts in MBTI fit me pretty well, and that would be ISTJ. That's what I would say. I'm thinking of SI paired with TE, paired with polar FE, mobilizing FI. I'm thinking of that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Which definitions are you relating to type yourself that type? Is it MBTI's definitions or it's like Socionics?
Yeah, and see again, we would have to examine that piece by piece. I think when I think something I really like about your theory is you focus on the lead function and the inferior function. You call it the shard, right? And I like that because it excludes all the noise of trying to fit other things into the other parts. You end up with like, well, I'm not sure if I have ignoring this or demo that or roll this. And, that's why in Socionics, I haven't had a concrete, like, this is what I know I am. Like in MBTI based systems, I have more confidence in what I would be in those, but when I'm probably, even in Socionics, there's a variance of what the what the elements are, right? Not all Socionics agree on, some with like SE emphasize force completely, which I think I've always found that a little bit weird. And then others look at it more as just, your five senses. I find a lot of Socionics, what MBTI people would describe as SI, they're describing as TI. So, in order to have a clear-cut typing, I have to have a clear-cut definition of the terms before I try to fit the pieces together.
Yeah. Understood. You guys have any
I don't have any questions. Alki, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool. I guess we can wrap up then.
Yeah, thank you guys for taking this much time with me. It's I appreciate it. If there's any way I can help support beyond spreading the word around, let me know. I'd be happy to help.
Thanks, Shane.
Would you be okay if we post this video on the channel?
Absolutely. Part of me, I'm curious what you're going to type me as, but I guess I'll find out soon enough.
So this is directly after our session. The team spoke about Shane's type, and we was all in full agreement how clear and consistent he was at being the guardian, which is an introverted, double-attached perception type. That's SI pillar, FI in service to that, TE as an expression function, and NE shard. This is a system that accounts for all of the functions, and you can see it within the 6 fixes below. And all of these fixes are occurring time and time again. We are a system that do not focus on one function over the other, but more so processes. Processes are rational and an irrational function working in cahoots together that form specifically certain fixations that are occurring within your cognitions. It is clear that Shane is a constraint narrator, but not just any constraint narrator, an attached constraint narrator, which basically means he is focused on what is, which is sensation, but how he goes about what is refining the information, heavily detailed in his orientation, and this is what makes him a cognitive introvert over a cognitive extrovert. If he was a seeker destroyer, more SE in his dominant, he would be focusing on external objects, but at the same time he will be prefacing it towards the potential in those things, hyper focusing on the impact that he's creating with those things. That doesn't happen with Shane at all. He actually avoids impact, right? That speaks to his LS5, which we call Withrow, which is the direct conflicting fix. When I asked him in which ways does he deal with conflict, he gave every reason how to avoid conflict, every reason. And it was his SI preferencing his information and how he experiences the world, right? So this is a clear indication of SI over SE. Another thing is he is an instrumental fix internal guide. We call it pacified. That's SIFI. How he relates to his experiences, how those experiences affect him. And the perception function is being highlighted through the narrative, through the dialogue, and how he's speaking and making everything clear, yet having a balance judgment factor going back and forth easily between FI and TE, which makes him a guided builder. And he expands to building, which is from that internal guide. He is now using TE expression within work, within how he lives and understands the world around him based off of SITE as well. So we call that the guided dreamer. He's double attached because the FI and the SI are pronounced, all in service of the frame, the pillar, which is SI. And the TE is also pronounced. He's more careful, cautious with how he utilizes the known, but also facts. He makes rational judgments through TE versus TI. And this is also very pronounced. Whatever's major, in the major arc, you're going to have LS1 and LS3 and LS5, the odd numbers. So your instrumental fix, that's what he continuously starts from as the theme of the type. He expands transformatively to his wise builder, which is SITE, and he naturally and directly goes to his conflicting fix and avoiding conflict by making everything around him preferenced to his own personal experiences, which is Withrow, time and time again. To avoid something, you have to take note of it. You have to see it, right? You have to call it out as well. This is happening within your major arc. To reference your experiences with how you feel from an instrumental point of view, this is referencing your major arc. To expand and know that you are in a state of growth, to transform, to understand the world for what it is and preference it based on facts and information and how you understand the world through TE expression. This is within your major arc. All of those things. What goes against your major arc is your minor arc. So Cyclone being within the arc minor is going to have a more surging response, combative dreaming, which is the expressive defense of personal stability within the imagination, their openness. anytime you have FE within the combative fixe, which in this case, FE is in service to NE, the shard for Shane, that possibilities being a perception type is going to have a natural defense in what's possible. So his approach wouldn't be about criticizing the collective directly. It would be more so about those possibilities. The defense is almost like leaving it open to the possibilities of them being incorrect, the collective, based upon what he himself has valued, and making sure that those things are accounted for consistently through SI-FI, through his instrumental fixe. This is a defense for the instrumental, the combative. And this is very clear when he's open to potentiality within an intangible space by inviting possibilities, yet at the same time not fully taking them in, it being a little bit flustered or confused within himself in how those things define or not define, bring meaning or not bring meaning based on what he himself has experienced through his instrumental and what he himself values as an in-service to the pillar dominant function. Typhoon is also in the arc-minded. However, we see him attempting to reach it based upon NETE. So that's his humbled ideator. This is why Shane is open to the possibility of him being a different type. It's his ideation. And you can tell that there is no interior motive there. He's going to it authentically from SI-FI, right? And what he's doing is preferencing how he could be something else based upon ideating further into those reasons. This is the humbled guide. It doesn't have the same spikiness as the combatant dreamer, which is the FE. Once the FE gets involved with any, there's going to be a different essence and different quickness in its reactiveness, which makes them different from one another. Yet they're both still within the arc minor. Another arc minor that is influenced indirectly by the pillar and the shard is Squall, LS6. This is indirect stagnated fixe because it rests in between SI pillar and NE shard. In between. This is why it must be indirect. This is also why it is concealed. So it doesn't actually mean that he's not utilizing NITI as an introverted ideator, the perception one, which is NITI. It just means that when he does do it, it's so indirect that it's hard to catch, which means that is not pronounced. This is why it is considered to be indirect, stagnated within its fixation. You do not see him directly going towards the meaning in a future-oriented way. What you do see him is defining meaning based upon his experiences, SI. You don't see him utilizing TI in a direct way, more so preferencing it through his internal ideation and trying to reference sources through his TE expression. There's a lack of confidence with these functions because they cannot be connected to directly. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Shane, for letting us have this opportunity to type you. And have a good day.